In terms of like, where do I find hope? I guess the last thing I'll say is there's this model that I like. We're actually about to write a paper on this. This guy, Marvin Harris, developed a school of cultural anthropology called cultural materialism. Really profound, insightful work. I don't agree with some of the conclusions, but he basically said you can think of civilization as the result of these three categories: infrastructure, social structure, and superstructure. Infrastructure is all the tooling, energy, transportation, waste management, modes of production. Social structure is like economics, governance, law, the institutions with which we mediate our agreements. And the superstructure is more like what we think of as culture, which is what are the values that we're orienting towards? What is the definition of the good life that we're orienting towards? So religion and nationalism and various kind of social ideologies live here. What he focused on was what we were starting to talk about at the beginning, which was the plow was so much more productive than just hunting and gathering from the point of calories you could produce, that the plow basically meant anyone who would do the plow thing would get ahead over those who wouldn't. So it coded for a pattern of behavior, which ended up coding for a mindset, because it meant those who were not animistic were going to get ahead from those who were animistic, even if being animistic made them more in harmony with their environment. So he focused on the way that tools, the infrastructure, ends up driving social structure and superstructure. We can do a deep analysis, we'll show this in this paper, of how all three of them interaffect each other. The nature of what is being economically incented determines which tools take off, also what's being regulated. The value systems can orient what we're doing science and exploration of, those types of things. Ultimately, the superstructure, the values of what matter to us, like the causal arrows from technology to drive our social structures, to drive our superstructure, is destructive. Like most of the destruction we have comes from that direction. This other direction, which is what are the values that we then encode into social structures? So how do we basically have a value system become the basis of law and rule of law that can then bind and direct the technology to be uses of tech that are not catastrophic and not dystopic, but actually in service of life? So our technology has gotten so powerful and it's kind of eroded our social structures and our superstructure. All that's left of the social structures of this kind of liberal democracy period is really like money on money returns and some very limited stuff. And mostly what's left of superstructure is like fairly self-centered nihilism and narcissism and nihilism. But so the development of culture to then have people of, for, by the people create new institutions that we can actually trust, put faith in, have rule of law that can then bind, guide, and direct the tech so that we can have a future that is high tech and high meaning, high nature, is kind of the only path. And I see that what you've already been doing with your podcast and where I see it going, conversations we've had, being how do we really help the cultural revolution to be the basis of rebuilding social institutions that can have the power to be able to guide this godlike tech that we have, where we're good stewards of it, is of all the things where I feel hope, it's not the tech. The question is what's going to guide the tech, and it has to be